So I'm super excited today to welcome Caitlin as our brand new LUV ambassador to share her story and talk a little bit more about skin cancer tips and tricks and things that you guys can take into your everyday life. Caitlin and I connected back when I was an undergrad at Virginia Tech working towards my degree in communication studies. And I actually interviewed her for a class assignment and we immediately clicked and had so much to learn from each other and share with each other. And one of those things was being her experience with melanoma. So I'm super excited to dive into that a little bit today, talk about your experience, but I want to start us with an icebreaker question to get to know a little bit more about you before we dive into talking about your skin cancer story. And our question today is, once COVID-19 restrictions are no longer a thing, everything goes back to whatever this new version of normal is, what is the first thing you're going to go do?
Ooh, that's tough. So I feel like I can't say one. I'm going to say two things. So one of the first things I want to do is meet my niece. She is just perfection, but lives in Alaska. And so I have not been able to meet her yet. She was born during the COVID-19 timeframe, and I really love seeing her on Zoom, but there is going to be nothing like holding her for the first time. So that's one. And I think the other is just going out to dinner as a big group of people, like big friend group, and just enjoying the meal, enjoying our time together, not distancing ourselves, and just enjoying and savoring that time.
Those are two really good ones. I know quite a few of my friends have had nieces, nephews, family members who have had kids, and it's just can't go visit a newborn baby right now, especially if you have to travel there. So that's a good one. And eating out with friends is a great one as well. I can completely agree with that.
Just the time together, I think, is what I'm really looking forward to. In person time together with the people I love most. So.
Right. Completely agree. So I'm going to launch us in and, we'll kind of touch a little bit on your story and then dive a little bit deeper into what you were feeling, what your diagnosis was like and everything like that. But can you give us a big, overarching view of what was your skin cancer story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always joked that I'm like a chocolate chip cookie. I have just a lot of little spots and dots and all over, but I have no family history of skin cancer. So while we might have a lot of spots, it's not been anything that was really on my radar. So I was 25 years old. I was pregnant with our first child, and I was just having some lower back pain just from being pregnant, and I was about a little over halfway through the pregnancy, and my husband was rubbing my back and he said, you have a spot back here that just doesn't look right. And I got so defensive because I was so tired of appointments and being, the weighing and the measuring and the sticking, and just part of being pregnant is all the medical appointments. So I just felt like, come on now, one more appointment. Is this what you're telling me? And so I brushed him off. I was like, okay, whatever, I'm fine, leave it alone. And he's like, but no, it really looks weird. So the next time we went and checked in with our OB for just like a baby appointment, he actually lifted the back of my shirt up and said, what do you think about that? And she said, ooh, that needs to go. And I remember just, again, being so offended, like, what are they? I am 25, I am healthy. I went to the dermatologist. It was my first time ever going to a dermatologist. And he said, yeah, let's take that off. Let's do a biopsy. And I just, again, it was that same place of like, this is so over the top. I don't understand why everyone is making such a big deal. And I was so frustrated with it because I was so healthy. And it's like, I can remember everything now though. It was like Christmas Eve's Eve. So it was the 23rd of December, they took it off. And then it was the 28th of December. I was sitting at work, my phone rang and I looked down and it said dermatologist. I'd saved them in my phone, and it was so bad, but I looked at my coworker and I said, hold on, I need to make sure I don't have skin cancer. Like real tongue in cheek, like this, like that's how over it I was. And I was like, hi, this is Caitlin. And I heard the dermatologist. It was not the nurse. And in that moment, like I still get chills. He doesn't call with good news. And I thought, oh my gosh, I must have like basal cell or something. And whenever he said melanoma, like it's still 9 years later, it's hard to talk about. It was like the floor dropped out, right? Because I was pregnant and it was like this time of promise and life and joy. And for me being pregnant, I just like, I felt like I have to be here. I've always wanted to be here. I've always loved life, but she gave me such purpose in wanting to be here for her. And one of the first things I asked him is, am I going to see my little girl go to kindergarten? And I don't know what it was about kindergarten, but that was my first question. And is she going to be okay? And like, I'm not trying to fall on the sword and say I wasn't also worried about myself, but there was something so real about the two of us getting that news. I was 25. I was very healthy. And it was like, for some reason, I thought because all other parts of me were healthy, it made me better than skin cancer or immune to skin cancer. It was just like the weirdest mental disconnect that I had at that time. And I just feel really thankful because it was melanoma and it was a serious diagnosis. I had surgery within 1 week of the diagnosis, but it was not something that was unbeatable because we did catch it early, because I have a husband who's dedicated to being a great partner in every sense of the word. And he advocated for my health when I had too bad of an attitude to do it for myself. And I know it's for all those reasons that I'm here and I'm able to share that story, and that I have a 9-year-old little wild thing upstairs running around who I did get to see go to kindergarten and who I get to watch grow up each and every day. So, you know, melanoma was never what I wanted in a diagnosis, obviously, but I am filled with gratitude for the journey and for where I sit today.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're going to move me to tears this morning. I mean, you're telling the story that I have heard so many times before about being young and being healthy, and everything else was perfectly fine. You had no reason to believe that you'd be impacted by skin cancer at such a young age. When I first had my diagnosis at 21, I was like, this isn't something that affects people in their 20s. Like, this is something that my grandparents deal with. It's not going to affect me. And I feel like that is such a sad misunderstanding when it comes to skin cancer, because there was another LUV ambassador who was 18. She was 18 when she had her melanoma diagnosis. So that, in addition to early detection, is something huge that I think people are just now starting to get the understanding of, because you had a partner who was able to check your back. You know, having someone who you can do a self-check and everything except your back, you can't see your back. So having a partner and having someone who knows what to look for, knows those ABCs to look for when it comes to skin cancer is incredibly important. And one thing I wanted to talk about as well is having a support system, having someone that you can talk about. Can you talk about the importance of kind of having that in the time that you received your diagnosis and you were undergoing treatment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was just amazing that coworkers who were there in that moment just rallied around me. So I remember Wendy was one of them, and she came and literally held my hand while I called my parents. It was really hard for me to tell my husband. See, I can't even talk about it. I mean, it was so hard to say the words to him. It just felt like, it felt worse than hearing them. Because again, I knew it impacted me and Harper, my little girl. But then for him to just say, like, one step at a time, that's all we can do. We cannot change what the diagnosis is, but we can face it head on, one step at a time. For me, understanding my pathology was really important. I felt more empowered when I could talk about it. And melanoma was not some big scary word that was controlling me, but I was like, no, this is when I fight and this is when I start to self-advocate. So I think what was really great is that my experience taught me what it means to be an advocate for your health, and to, yes, trust the doctor is the subject matter expert with medicine and dermatology, but I am the subject matter expert on like who I am as a person and my emotional and physical needs and my concerns and anxieties. And I just learned the value in being able to speak up, and finding a healthcare team that cared for the whole person and that understood the emotional weight of a diagnosis, in addition to the physical components that we just really had to tackle head on. I am still with the same dermatologist 9 years later. I see multiple dermatologists in the practice because they have just a consistent approach to care and are such great supports for me. But I do not miss appointments. I do not skip. I do not mess around, because to me, it is very simple. Go have your skin checks, stay on top of it, and it's all good. And that is how I've been able to rise above the fear of melanoma, is just making sure that I'm doing my part and trusting that when I do my part and I have my support system of healthcare practitioners in the loop, it's going to be okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's so important. I think there's one thing that I've heard time and time again is that people are scared of the appointment because they're scared of the information that they might receive. I'm like, it is so much scarier to live in the unknown than it is to go and
It's,
have a professional check it out for you.
yeah. And I think too, it's just like, it's not invasive. They are just looking at your skin and using their training, experience, education to assess, is it all good?
Right.
Does anything need to change? I mean, when I think of other appointments, there's no blood draws, there's no scanning. It is simply letting a professional look. And I will do that all day, every day, if it means being here for my children, for my family, to have dinner with friends, to meet my niece. I mean, I have so much living to do, and I can't let melanoma steal that from me. And so the battle for me is in the prevention work, because you aren't going to have, unless it's advanced, you're not going to have fatigue from it. You're not going to have these symptoms that present themselves. So it's taking care of the spots because you want to catch it before there are symptoms. So for me, maybe it's not that simple, but it feels that simple of do my part, have the preventative scans. And of course, that's when we can also talk too about other prevention measures, like how we are protecting our skin when outside, living life and enjoying life, because there's that piece of it too.
Yeah, definitely. Let's dive a little bit into that prevention work. And one of the things that I think needs to be done that very few brands are actually doing is diagnosing misinformation and saying, here's where the misinformation stems from. So, what is one myth, or it could be multiple myths about skin cancer or skin cancer awareness that you want to debunk, that you hear and you say, whoa, 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 no, 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 that is not true?
Well, I think one is the word just. Was just skin cancer. I just had skin cancer. I've eliminated that from my vocabulary because I think that's one of the most dangerous things if we underestimate the severity of skin cancer and what it can mean. A year prior to my diagnosis, I lost a colleague who was 25 years old. And I think that's where the kindergarten thing came from. He had a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, and that stuck with me.
Mhm.
And it's not just skin cancer. It is unpredictable, aggressive, and it's something that we need to fight. So I think that that's one thing. The other thing I would say is fear of the sun, or fear of really embracing outdoor living. I don't think that a melanoma diagnosis is a requirement to live a fear-based life. I think it requires living smart and thoughtful and using adequate skin protection, whether it's clothing, whether it's applying SPF to skin. But I just refuse to let melanoma steal life from me in a number of ways. Like, yes, I mean living here still with my family, but I also mean embracing time at the beach. I mean going for runs. Now I have a lot of hats. I have, skin coverings, clothing, sunscreen stashed everywhere I go. SPF is part of my daily makeup routine. So I'm living smart, but I am not living in fear because of my diagnosis.
Right. And that's something we have talked about multiple times about, our mantra at LUV is to outshine skin cancer,
I
that
love it.
it's the reality is that the women that we're connecting with are in their 20s or 30s. Like, that is when they receive their diagnosis, and they have young families. They're just starting to truly get into living their life, and living in fear is so easy to do because it's something that happens so instantaneously, and it completely rocks your world, and it's easy to get terrified. It's easy to get scared, and it's easy to feel like no one else understands, and that is so not true. There are so many brands working towards helping people who have been diagnosed, one, find the support that they need, and two, find the apparel, find the products that they need to continue living their lives. So whenever I hear you say don't be fearful, just take the tools that you need to continue living your life, that is 100% what we're trying to do here.
I love it. Well, I have outshine has always just resonated with me because I think we were all made to shine, and we were all made to embrace a life that's fulfilling and rich. And, I think when I think of cancer, I think skin cancer and other types, I think it just takes so much. And part of my commitment to let go of fear is because I will not let cancer take from me. I just won't. And I love finding the ways to equip myself so that I can live that truth each and every day. So I'm glad for brands like your brand that are helping people like me do exactly that.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of going off of that too is, you said you have your SPF, you have your sun protection, your hats when you run. Is there anything else, any other tips that you incorporate into your everyday life that the audience can take away and include in theirs as well for staying protected from the sun in their everyday lives?
Well, I think taking breaks too, getting out from under the sun. At the beach, we bring tents. We make sure we only go to beaches where they allow tents or canopies. And when it's time for like sand play with my kids, if we're not in the water, we often will sit under the tent to protect our skin. And also because I have to be thoughtful about theirs, because now they do have melanoma in their family history. So their skin is just as important to me to protect. So making sure that shade is built into my general routine. Of course, not tanning in the natural sun, not tanning in artificial sun is, I think that goes without saying, but I have also heard misinformation that a base tan is great. And I wish that was one that could be pulled out of circulation, because that is not true. And sun exposure is where this all starts from. So we really just have to be thoughtful about that.
Yeah, 100%. I think knowing as well, knowledge is power, and knowing your family history. Like my mom had malignant melanoma, which is how I knew that I was predisposed. So having that information and knowing that is powerful, because it does mean that when you're 18, when you're in your early 20s, that you do need to be aware of this. And it's a huge thing that people don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think just make it part of your routine. I mean, we all have health things that have to be part of our routine. We all should be going to the dentist twice a year. We all should be having an annual checkup with our PCP. This is not some weird formula that's hard to figure out. And that's what I hope people really hear is like, it's very simple. It really doesn't have to be this big, scary thing. It's just part of the check-in process with the various healthcare providers that keep you healthy and well. So make it part of your routine. One of my tricks is, when I check out at each appointment, I always make the next appointment and put it in my phone. And then if I have to reschedule, so if it's 6 months for me, I have to go quite a bit, as I'm sure you can imagine. But if I get to that appointment and it doesn't work for my life, well, then I have a prompt to reschedule as opposed to having to remember. Mm-hmm. So it's simple things like that I just make it part of my life's routine. And then it happens and there's no issue staying on top of my skincare health. The other thing is, because I've had melanoma, I have no problem saying goodbye to spots. So I'm about proactive spot removal is kind of my joke. And I've just accepted that as something that I just do to stay on top of it. So no big deal when I see them go. I just figure it's one less to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny because the dermatologist I go to, they're very focused on aesthetics. And when they remove a spot, they want to make sure that they don't leave you with a scar. And my mom and I go in, we're like, take it, just take it. We don't care about the scar. We'll deal with the scar.
Gosh, I'm with you. Scars. Yes. Scars mean you are alive to tell the tale of how you earned it. I think they're earned. So scars aren't given, they're earned, right?
Right. So true. And there's also so many like drugstore brands that you can put over them now and renew that skin. And it's something that is so much easier to fix than melanoma once it actually starts.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you. And plus a melanoma surgery scar is it's kind of Frankenstein in nature. So I think take the little ones if you have to. Hopefully you don't have to take any, but if you do, it's really not that big of a deal. So
exactly. Well, this has been such a fantastic conversation. Is there anything else that you wanted to address that we haven't had the time to chat about?
I would just say really that these conversations are so important. I think they're important for melanoma survivors to know they're part of a network. They're part of a group of people who can proudly tell the story of what they've overcome and endured. The gratitude and the blessings that come from sitting in this chair that I'm sitting in and being able to talk to you and tell the story as an overcomer. I mean, I hope that people hear that too, that yeah, diagnoses, they're scary and they're hard, and the time obviously I couldn't even tell the story 9 years later without going to a really deeply emotional place.
Mhm.
But I also hope they hear in my voice the gratitude for this life I've been blessed with and for the journey that I've had. And I will say that in addition to my commitment to not let cancer and melanoma take from me, I'm committed to like being even more blessed because of it. And so friendships like this, sharing like this is a blessing for me. So thank you for letting me have this time with you to share.
Absolutely. And that was so beautiful. And the audience can also look out for a blog post coming soon. So if they want to learn more about you, they can read about you as well in the short future.
Yes, I'm excited for that too.
Us too. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for coming on, joining me today, sharing your story, even when it's still a hard one to tell. You're impacting and helping people to have these same conversations and open up as well. It's helping them heal. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.